Walk with History today is from Erie, Pennsylvania, as we explore the Erie Maritime Museum, dedicated to the War of 1812, Oliver Hazard Perry, and the whole Erie Maritime experience. The Erie Maritime Museum is housed in an old steam factory, and from 1917 until 1980, it supplied all the electricity and steam heat for Erie, Pennsylvania. So you still have one huge smokestack still out front, and that is how you can pick out the Erie Maritime Museum. So the Erie Maritime Museum is right on the Erie waterfront here. It's housed with the main library here in Erie, and it has been here since 1998. It has a recreation of the Brig Niagara out back, Oliver Hazard Perry's flagship in the Battle of Lake Erie during the War of 1812. But let's go inside. So as you walk in the museum, you'll come right to the gift shop. It goes right into a little history of Lake Erie, the Battle of Lake Erie. This is a recreation, like a model of the statue that they have out in Perry Square in Erie. Yeah, this is dedicated to the Great Lakes and the history of the Great Lakes. And so it's a nice little entry as you walk into the Erie Maritime Museum. So Oliver Hazard Perry in the Battle of Lake Erie, his banner was "Don't give up the ship." Right? And he got that from his friend Lawrence. That was his, Captain James Lawrence, that was his motto, and he had died, so Oliver wanted to honor him, so he had that slogan that made into a flag without the apostrophe. It was sewn here in Erie, Pennsylvania by a couple women in just a week. The original is in the Naval Academy. Did Oliver Hazard Perry give up the ship? Technically he did, because he transferred from the Lawrence when it got badly damaged to the Niagara. And he ends up fighting the war from the Niagara. But the famous painting of Oliver Hazard Perry is him giving up the ship. He's leaving the ship. He's leaving the Lawrence for the Niagara. I assume he's taken the flag with him, and then he'll put it up on the mast on the Niagara, and he'll win the Battle of Lake Erie. But he technically gave up the ship, but he didn't give up the fight, which I think is the bigger picture here, is he's not giving up the fight. This is a recreation of the flag, and you can see it doesn't have the apostrophe. The letters are spaced out, reminiscent of the flag that he had with him on the Lawrence, transferring on the boat to the Niagara, and this is the flag he put up on the Niagara. One of my favorite things from the Battle of Lake Erie and Oliver Hazard Perry is not only his confidence in himself.
Confidence is high. I repeat, confidence is high.
So the battle happens on September 10th, 1813. It happens on the west side of Lake Erie, so by Ohio. And he's writing a letter to let his superiors know the outcome. And he has the famous saying, "We have met the enemy and they are ours." And I just love that. And that's famous saying now from Oliver Hazard Perry. But this is the cannon that he captured. It's from the HMS Detroit. When they brought up the Niagara 100 years after it had been sunk and used in the Battle of Lake Erie, they did it for the centennial of the battle, and they made things from the wood, and people would buy them. So like this is a box made from the wood of the Niagara. This is a chair made from the wood of the Niagara. They used to have a cane in here. That's a clock made from the wood of the Niagara. These are also some things from the centennial of the Battle of Lake Erie, September 10th, 1813, 100th anniversary, September 10th, 1913. It was a big celebration because it was a big victory for America, and it also ensured our victory of the War of 1812. Even though the battle was fought in 1813, the War of 1812 was won. This battle turned the tide. So this is the Brig Niagara today in the back part of the Erie Maritime Museum. It's covered for the winter and for COVID, but usually it's open. I've actually sailed on it. It's awesome. It's really fun. And they have it here for people to go take sailing tours on it. This is a recreation of what it would look like, and it's a split ship, so you can see the inside of it all. But look at the neat little intricacy of all the cannons, and inside, staterooms. I'm pretty sure you went to the bathroom on the head, right? The head of the ship. So the head is where you would go potty, and we actually call it a head in the Navy. The bathroom is called the head. So I'm behind the museum. So this is the museum right here, and I'm behind the museum with their recreation of the Brig Niagara. This brig was built in 1988. It was launched on September 13th, 1988 for the 175th anniversary of the Battle of Lake Erie. It's still covered up because of COVID, but my husband and I have been on this ship sailing. We actually took our kids on the ship for Christmas to meet Santa Claus. This is the third rebuild of the Niagara. It does have some original wood, but like I said, not for any structural purpose because it couldn't probably stand the stress of that. It's a great teaching tool. It's an awesome artifact that they have here with the museum. It has 2 masts. So again, why it's a brig. One of the things the Erie Maritime Museum does a very good job of is showing you what a sailor's life would have been like. So this is what officer quarters would have looked like. They show you what it would be like on the ship, where it would be located, how small it would be, how you couldn't even really stand up in here. It's just tight living quarters. And they talk about pay and prize money, the type of guns they would have, cannons they would have, how many people it takes to work a cannon. What I also love about this museum, and they do very well, is they show you rigging. Great learning tool, and you can work it yourself. You can go over there and pull the lines yourself. I'm sailing! Which is very cool. Something that you don't get in every museum. And they have some actual wood from the Niagara. I worked here for a while, and there's much more of this. Used a couple pieces for the Brig Niagara outside, but nothing that's going to be used in the actual sailing of the ship, so nothing that can take stress loads. Timber, and this is how they built the Brig Niagara. Very cool. Is up to 1/4 of the sailors were probably African American. So black sailors in 1812. And there is a marker to honor that. And they have people who recreate those men who served. But to be a sailor in the 1800s and African American is one of the few jobs that not only were you skilled, but you got the same pay because you're doing the same work. So when you're on the ship, everybody's seen as equal, everyone's pulling their weight, and you're getting paid the same amount of money. Oliver Hazard Perry said some of his most skilled sailors were African American. So I'm here with Charles Johnson. He is the museum educator here at the Erie Maritime Museum. It's always good in the museum to find someone who is really studied in that area, and because he's the museum educator, that's what he does. So he's going to talk about another ship that is well known here on Lake Erie, and it was the Michigan Wolverine iron steamer for almost 80 years, and it was the longest any powered Navy vessel. So he's going to tell you all about it.
Yeah, so this is one of my favorite artifacts, one of my favorite ships, at least here in Erie Maritime history, and it's the USS Michigan Wolverine. Had 2 different names because the U.S. Navy in 1905 decided to commission the battleship Michigan, and because this thing's been around for quite some time, they decided to name her the Wolverine. So this ship was built in Pittsburgh, or manufactured, I should say, in Pittsburgh, put together here in Erie, 1842 to 1843, and she actually launched herself into the lake, which is a really funny story. But what's really great about this artifact is you can actually come up and you can see the construction techniques used to build her. Lapped riveted iron, I should say, and if you come around here, you can actually see that bits of that construction as well.
Oh, cool.
She was originally rigged as I want to say a topsail schooner, but throughout her history, she changed a little bit, took down some sails, particularly the ones behind the smokestack, because canvas and ash don't mix very well.
Yeah, that would be bad.
But yeah, she served for 79 years as the Navy's first iron warship in our history. So
Awesome.
just a really cool artifact.
And
Really
that's
cool piece.
what it would look like on the ship.
Yeah, you could the beak itself, what it would have looked like.
Yeah, and this
initially.
this was actually put outside for the public for a long time.
Yeah, so she rested on Presque Isle, and you know it was pretty much not mothballed in the traditional sense, but yeah, the public. There's people who come in here and like, I remember playing on on Wolverine as a kid.
Yeah.
And that's true.
Yeah.
People would pick off souvenirs and yeah, it's just it's a really beautiful piece. This thing in particular, but you can actually learn her history here at the museum.
And when was she decommissioned?
She was decommissioned in 1923.
Oh, okay.
And really sat here in Erie till 1949.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, she is home ported here in Erie for really over 100 years.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
This is the wheel from the Michigan, which is awesome. Not every ship has a wheel like this, so when you see one, it's pretty cool. I know the Brig Niagara does not have a wheel like this because I looked for it on the Niagara and it's not there. So it's neat when you do get to see one. It looks like the ship's bell and the original ship's door. So another artifact that's really awesome that this museum has is uniforms. So here is a uniform from a seaman on the Michigan, and this says as little has changed since the Civil War. So this is pretty much what they would have worn in the Civil War as well. Of course, you got like a Dixie cap cover, and you got the sailor bib and pants, but it's neat that they've preserved these uniforms that sailors wore. So this is on loan, actually. I know because I had to fill out the loan paperwork. When you work in museums, you have to update your loan paperwork when you have things that are not yours in your museum. But this lens is on loan from the Coast Guard. And this is a lens that's used in a lighthouse. And this is going to amplify the light so much so people can see it from miles and miles away on the sea. And this is just an example of what it looks like with how they bend the glass and the mirrors to get the light to be magnified way out for sailors and to keep away from hazardous rocks and shoreline. So ships are categorized by their rigging. And we talked about rigging a little bit. It's sails and lines and how many sails and how many masts. And so the combination of sails and mast is called a rig. And when I say the Brig Niagara, it's because a brig is a two-masted vessel with square sails on both sides. So that's why it's a Brig Niagara. But you'll hear different things like just a ship. A ship has square sails on 3 masts, a schooner, a sloop. Those are kind of nautical terms to describe how many masts and how many sails are on the ship and the identification of its rigging. This is a painting recreating them building the Niagara, building the ships that were used in the Battle of Lake Erie in the War of 1812. These ships that were built here with the wood from Erie and Presque Isle. And here we are in the gift shop. They have amazing nautical gifts. Oliver Hazard Perry had a dog, a spaniel that was on the ship with him, so they have a recreation, little stuffy of his dog. I don't think they ever were able to figure out what the dog's name was. Still lost to history, but tons of nautical pictures, recreation of the flag. These nautical flags have letters, and these are the letters for Erie, E-R-I-E. Tons of books, if you're interested, and tons of clothing. Just a really, really great nautical themed gift shop if you're interested in any gifts from the Erie Maritime Museum. The War of 1812 Battle of Lake Erie, something it's kind of forgotten in time. Battle of Lake Erie is the turning point. Oliver Hazard Perry makes his name for himself. He comes back to America, comes back to the shore, and tours and gives great morale-boosting speeches about the American military, and America ends up winning the war. They win the war more so because the British don't have the funds to fight it. So the British agree, we won't impress your sailors anymore. But Erie is instrumental to this battle. Erie builds the ships. Erie is where Oliver Hazard Perry is ported from. So it has a place in American history, an importance in American history. And forever will go down as the location, the name of the lake, the name of the city that was the turning point in the War of 1812. On to my next block of history.